I am an assistant professor here in the Department of Business and Tourism at Mount St. Vincent University. We wanted to welcome everybody who is joining us here on our first Career Week panel. We're looking at marketing this afternoon. We want to extend a warm welcome and a thank you to all of our wonderful panelists who are joining us on this live session here this afternoon. We wanted to, of course, welcome all of our marketing students and those who are interested in marketing that are live on this call. And we also wanted to extend a warm welcome to all of those in the Mount community that are joining us. We really appreciate your time here this afternoon. We have prepared a number of questions that we would like to create a dialogue with our panelists, and they come from the perspective of marketing and communication specialists. And so without further ado, we have 4 all-star panelists, and we're going to get right to it. How this will work is there are a total of 9 questions, and I will start with Arielle first, and then we'll move down in somewhat of an order, and it will be the same question for each panelist and room for follow-up. So please feel free to interrupt, to share a story, and let this be, again, a dialogue versus more of a robotic exercise. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Arielle. Arielle, you are no stranger to the Mount. Could you briefly introduce yourself, talk to us about you, describe your organization, and the position that you are currently employed in?
My pleasure, Nick. Thank you so much. And the reason I'm not a stranger is I graduated from the Mount in 2016, so I'm a proud alum. And Nick and I had a few courses together. I think we were group project buddies for a few projects in the trenches. So he was a great partner, by the way. So what I do, my current title is Communications and Content Specialist at McInnes Cooper, and I actually have just transitioned as of last Monday into this role. I was for almost 5 years a proposal coordinator here at the firm, which I actually started my career at the firm as a co-op student, and I just never left. They never got rid of me. So it's a little plug for those of you that are in the co-op program. It can absolutely help launch your career. And basically what I've done in the proposal context is I've helped with the development of proposal bids and the development of marketing assets for targeted business development activities. And in the communications and content realm, which I've been involved in it piecemeal, and it's become, now my full role as I look to transition out of proposals, I develop content for our website, working with our lawyers and our members to develop their profiles, working with the broader marketing team and our external agency to carry consistent messaging throughout the marketplace, whether that's in ads or social media or even just our content more broadly. And I'm also supporting internal communications at the firm.
Excellent. Arielle, you are busy, but we're so grateful that you've joined us here today. Welcome to the panel. We're going to now turn next to Nick, and Nick joined us here. Nick, could you turn on your webcam if it is at all possible, and talk to us about you. Tell us your story. Tell us about the organization that you work for and the position that you currently hold.
Sure. Thanks, Nicholas. I believe my webcam is on and functional. Can you folks all see me properly?
It's not showing up on mine as appearing.
Very strange. I see myself in the webcam. Maybe after I ask, maybe after I answer this one, I'll try to rejoin. But
sounds great.
Basically, I lead the global social media team here at Bank of Montreal, and some of the many things that entails is leading a team of about 12 social media professionals working across social media customer care, employee and executive social media advocacy, social listening and monitoring, social media marketing, social governance across BMO, social media education for our workforce, and of course, the management of all of our social media channels.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Welcome to the panel. We're happy to have you join us here from that perspective. We're going to turn it over now to Justin MacKenzie, who is also no stranger to the Mount. Justin, could you talk to us about your wealth of experience, the organizations that you've worked for, your current marketing experience, and the position that you're involved in.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Nick. And it's always a pleasure to join in a conversation like this. There's always a lot of learning. So I'm looking forward to learn from all the panelists here as well. But I am also a Mount St. Vincent alum. And I was kind of introduced to kind of the business world through Peter Mumbercat. Became a nice friend, and we're both from Cape Breton, so that worked out well for us. But he inspired me a lot. He obviously has an interest in marketing and entrepreneurship and business in general. So coming out of Mount St. Vincent University, I worked for a developer and helped him with sales and marketing. And then moved on and worked for different nonprofit organizations. Currently now, I'm actually a pastor of a Christian community called One Church, which I actually started myself. And that was 10 years ago. So it's a very multicultural, diverse organization. And I've worked for several nonprofit organizations, including post-secondary, which was a lot of fun. Marketing education is a different twist as a service versus a product. And also I've worked for Scotiabank, also as an independent consultant, helping organizations with marketing. And I just do a little bit of freelance stuff on the side. But creativity is certainly something that I really, really love. And I found it has lent itself well to trying to help market organizations better. So anyway, that's it. Great to be here.
Welcome, Justin. Thank you so much for joining us. And in full disclosure, Justin and I work together in another context. So it's great to have him here with us here at the Mount. So thank you. Jonny Stevens, the last but not least, a man of many hats and talents. Please talk to us. You have a long track record of success in marketing. Talk to us about your organization, your past, your story, your position, please.
Great to see you. So Nicholas and I did our masters together, and just it's been crazy to watch what you've been doing in your personal and professional life. So my story is probably more like the Forrest Gump story of business, in that I've taken a very unusual path to get to where I am today. So my current role is as National Vice President of Sales for BDO. BDO is the 5th largest consulting firm in Canada. We have 7,000 staff and are closing in on $1 billion in business. And so, again, a total Forrest Gump way to get here. My company was acquired. We were acquired by BDO back in March. So up until March 5th, pre-COVID, I ran sales for a technology company of about 200 people. And so through acquisition, I've found my way into managing and running all of sales for all of BDO, which is a significant gulp, I suppose, from the fire hose. But I've got a team of close to 20 sellers, so 20 direct salespeople. These are very senior folks. I'm actually probably the youngest person on the team. So people that have been in business for many, many years. I run the sales operations and sales enablement team. So that's the folks that support selling through marketing, kind of tactical marketing. So Arielle kind of described her practice I would call that, sales enablement and sales operations, maybe a bit of a mix of both. And so we've got a team that I oversee there. And then I also work with a channel team who do, channel marketing to Microsoft and other large organizations, as we are an implementer. But the Forrest Gump approach, I worked in the music business. So I kind of cut my teeth in the music business, working in not-for-profits in the arts sector. I did do a stint at a marketing agency in Bedford called Revolve. Revolve is I think every year in the agency world is like a dog year. It's 7 years. And so I say I did my 15 or 14 years rather in the agency world before realizing it was an incredible place to learn and a springboard for me to move into my true passion, which is technology, and where I find myself today. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to the conversation today.
That's great. Thank you, Jonny. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a question that we've prepared talking about your path. How did you end up where you are today? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle over to Justin. Can you talk to us about your story? So the question is, how did you end up where you are today? Talk to us about your past education. Did you study marketing? Did you start by studying marketing? What type of trajectory did your career take you to present day?
Sure. It's a good question, really. And I think Jonny's probably story is probably similar for all of us. I don't know if anybody ever studies marketing, but and maybe they do. But I certainly didn't go to university thinking I was going to strictly focus on marketing. I was just really interested in business. And so obviously a little bit of entrepreneurship, I kind of had that in my blood. So, for me, really, I was just trying to see what was out there. And I think in my post-secondary experience, probably about 80% of people that are in university, college, they really probably don't know where they're going to end up. So everybody's just kind of trying. And, eventually what I've found, Nick, is you often start leaning toward maybe something that you're good at. Like Jonny mentioned, technology or whatever, something that has kind of always been a little bit of a strand within, I guess, your pursuit. So for me, it was creativity. I went and I studied business, but I've always had this really highly, desire just to create things. So since time I was a kid, I was drawing stuff, and I'm old enough now that I remember when computers really came out in high school. So yeah, so that was that the world changed. So everything went online, graphics and media. I remember the first media department at St. FX University. Actually worked for the science department, helping them develop designs for online learning, actually. So that was way back in the late 90s. But anyway, so all that kind of pieced itself together where I find myself offering skills that I had, such as the ability to take an idea that was just a concept, bring it to life and try to make it tangible, manageable, handleable for people to be able to understand, whether it be education, whether it be a service, or whether it be a product. So I've done that now for many organizations. Like I mentioned, I work for a developer in the city. I've also worked for nonprofits, helping people to buy education, which is an interesting concept. And also, like I said, independent work, helping people to bring their ideas to life, because marketing really is about the marketplace. It's about helping get a producer what they're producing, and then get somebody to consume it. And so really it's kind of making the bridge, and I find through creativity, I'm able to try to bridge that gap and make sure that people that are consuming something really fully understand it, make sure it meets their needs and the things they're really looking for, and help them ultimately to execute and to follow through in that. So, and also we talk about, in our day, we talk about, being socially responsible. So we don't just want them just to have something because it meets our need. It's very important today for us to make sure this is a good buy for everybody. And I think when you have that philosophy with marketing, we don't want to be like tire kickers. You know what I mean? We're just trying to sell a cheap product and get, let it be an end or a means to an end. And we want to have value. And so I think that with a proper philosophy and the proper approach, I think, in that regard, it's a really valuable return for everybody. So yeah, it's been a bit of a long approach. Right now, I end up, strictly using my skills to market in a nonprofit organization that I started. And I love that very, very much. And every day I get to employ these skills, but I never saw myself head in that direction. But that's where it's led me. So anyway, probably a very similar story for many people.
Just to maybe touch in on something Justin mentioned, I look at the world of, it's so interesting because we're talking about marketing, and you, Justin, have articulated selling. And I think that often people think of them as different things, and they're not.
Sure.
But for the team that I run, I tell people when they first start, first day, first year, decade point, we help people make good decisions. And that's
there
it.
You go. That's awesome.
That is the job, is to help people make a good decision.
Yeah, that's
And
excellent.
sometimes it means saying, no, we're not the right fit. Because if you take this very long and, as you say, ethical look at things, we could do business today and it would be the wrong fit and would never work together again. Or we do what's right for the client and we work together over the next 10, 15, 20 years. So that's a great point that you brought up. I wanted to just put an asterisk over it.
I think that has longevity, Jonny. I think in the end of the day, you make better business and you get more sales when you look at it holistically like that. And you say, you know what, we're not just here, for the moment. We're here to build a relationship. And everybody knows now that business is about relationships. It's not about, I can sell you something now, but I want to walk away feeling good and I want you to walk away feeling good. It's not like buying a car. Nobody walks away from buying a car and feels good. But we want to feel good about the relationship. When I see somebody outside of work, I want to know I really helped them. They helped me, and it was a good exchange.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome point.
Excellent. I love this dialogue. I'm going to put Arielle into the mix of things here. Similar question to you. Talk to us about your path. How did you end up where you are today? Marketing. What did that trajectory look like for you as an early career professional? And then we'll swing it over to Nick.
Well, I hate to contradict Justin, but I did study marketing.
There you go.
But I did actually go into the Mount. I went into the Mount though. I was planning on taking management. I've always enjoyed working with people and I've always been, labeled a people person. So I kind of went in with the mindset that I was going to go into HR. But I went into the co-op program and I ended up getting a position as a marketing assistant at a local business, and I loved it. I really enjoyed my time there, and I got exposure to a whole lot of different things. And some of the stuff I ended up having to do, cold calling, I hated every second of it, but you learn some valuable lessons when you're doing things that you don't necessarily absolutely love, and you learn what you don't enjoy, which is almost just as important as figuring out what you do enjoy in your career.
That's a good point.
We've all had to pivot, and going into a new job right now in the last 2 weeks, I've enjoyed the time that I had in proposals. It's not what I wanted to do long term. So when I talk about a trajectory, I mean, I've been out of school for a little less than 5 years. So it's not a long trajectory, but basically, my co-op experience, I couldn't rave any more about it. It was such a valuable time for me. And having the mentorship that I had through my managers and things like that throughout that course was extremely valuable. And I won't wax long here, but I will say, another important thing for me was continuing my education later on. Because I wanted to pivot my career. So last year I decided I was going to do something about it. And I started taking my strategic copywriting course at the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. And it's been really cool to get exposure to different people. There's people in my class that are from across the country. And, it's enabled me to see things from a different perspective and to learn and immerse myself in an area that I am more interested in. So yeah, that's what I would say to those listening, is that don't be afraid to do things that maybe you don't love doing for a short time. Just learn from it and then pivot and figure out what you need to do the things that you do enjoy doing, that you want to base your career on.
That's an awesome, Arielle, just to interject there, that's an amazing point. Like that would be worth the whole panel right there. just to find out what you don't like, you know what I mean? Seriously. Yeah. Good point.
Absolutely.
That's great. And I'm going to turn it over to Nick, and I'm going to insert my thought. I'm going to break the cardinal rule here. What I have found of students and of myself is we think we have a trajectory, point A to point B in our life, and we use education as the example. But as we live, we begin to find out that sort of it takes these long tangents and rabbit trails that may not be where we are meant to be or should be or where we want to be. But a lot of the work that we do, like Arielle, you just commented, it's discovered work. We discovered through opportunities that there's something else out there than point A to point B. Nick, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then Jonny's rearing to go. Talk to us, Nick. Talk to us about your story. How did you end up where you are today? You're successful. Did you start out by studying marketing? What was your career plan? Did education play a role in that? Did mentoring, did a network? Talk to us about that story.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I loved MSVU so much. I took actually 2 degrees back to back. So I did my business administration degree in marketing and management, and then I came back and did my master's degree in public relations, and that included a co-op term that I did at the Department of National Defense. From a path perspective, I always knew precisely where I was going. I purpose-built my education. I purpose-built my path. I tried to really get into marketing. I actually tried to get a marketing co-op in my master's in public relations. And the reason I took public relations was I wanted to have that risk management lens. I wanted to have that guiding a company's reputation management, because I knew that was a strong part of digital marketing and social media specifically, which I knew I wanted to get into. So from a path perspective, that part all worked out for me. What actually didn't work out for me, and I hope no one listening to this kind of experiences this path, is after university, I probably interviewed at about 30 different employers, and that was, sometimes getting second and third interviews, you name it. But I didn't manage to land a single job in Nova Scotia. So after about 6 months of that, I began applying to employers in the Toronto region, and I landed a contract opportunity with Bell Canada. And over 6 years with Bell, after that, I very quickly got a full-time opportunity, moved up the chain there, and then I made the move to BMO, where I've been for nearly 5 years now. So the path was right, the education was right. Trying to stay in Nova Scotia to make it happen just wasn't realistic for me, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, Nick, for sharing that. And our hopes is that those who are listening would take that into consideration, where our city, there's so many opportunities. You do, like you say, you drove your education towards a purpose. So we're going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. John, I'm going to get to you. Talk to us about your story. How did you end up as being the vice president of a very large organization? Talk to us about your career path, and if Ed played a role in that, and experiences.
Just for sure. Before I get to that, Nick, I think that it's a good point. Like, we live in a province with 1 million people. And if you think about, interesting fact I heard, if you remove Cape Breton, no offense, and Northern New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada has the same unemployment rate as Toronto. So we actually do have opportunity here. It's just that on a much smaller scale. And we've got a lot of talent, which is good. It's very good for us. Sometimes you do have to leave home to find work. But what I was going to say, Nick, is I think that COVID has upended this entirely. Like, every job posting I have, and I'm hiring for, a half a dozen positions right now, are all non-geographic. Like, if I can hire someone in Lunenburg or Vancouver, like, it doesn't matter. And so I think that we've opened up a lot of opportunity. However, with that opportunity creates noise, and it's a challenge to everyone in this call. Like, you've got to be good, and you've got to be, better than good. I don't mean like 2 times better than the next person, but you've got to really pay attention to your resume, your outreach, your professional profile, and identifying those areas, in your experience, if not work experience and life experience, that are going to make you stand out. And so what has gotten me to this position that I'm in right now? Well, I think there's 3 things. So number 1 is luck. I was lucky to be born in Canada. I was lucky to have opportunity to have a reasonable education. And I was lucky enough to be forced to make my own steam in the world. And I think that I didn't have a plan B. There was no safety net. And so my first job was washing dishes in a restaurant. Like, it doesn't get much worse than that, folks. And I know I can always go back to do that. I think they're paying more than $5 an hour, which is what I was making at the time. And so luck is the first thing. The second thing is mentors. So I had a lot of people that gave me a break, that gave me an opportunity. My first professional job was working in an association, and I was really down on myself. I was like, I don't have the qualifications. My education is not in the right spot. Like, I don't have any of the things that are necessary to be successful in this role. And I called the person hiring, and he said, look, Jonny, the read between the lines thing is, we need someone with real life experience who's basically done it all wrong so that they can advise the members of our organization how to do it the right way. And I was like, I've done it wrong. And and so I had someone give me a shot. And then the final thing is momentum. Like, I never stop moving, and I don't mean fidgeting in my seat. And I don't mean jumping job to job. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I think about, how can I make this day better for my family, for my kids, for my wife, for myself, for my business. And I think that momentum is so, so important. And so if you're looking for work, start writing content. Like, before I started at Lixar, I took parts of my thesis and sliced them up into LinkedIn articles and started posting them, positioning myself as an expert in the space I was moving into. And so, there's a lot of material that you're going through right now that's probably valuable to somebody in the market. And so momentum is critical. And that means meeting people, being present and out there, reading, as Arielle said, like going back and doing a course, keeping the rust off of your skills. And so luck, the good fortune of having people give me an opportunity and take a chance on me, which forces me to pay it forward, by the way. Like, I bet on the underdog every time. And then momentum. And those three things are really what has, have propelled me to where I am today. Very unconventional path, but I think that one common thread has been growth. Anything I've been involved with has been growing. And that's what I have brought to the table. And it took me 10 years before I realized what the value I could bring to a company would be. And so now I know, I'm not the keep the same, stay the same, maintain guy. I'm the guy who's going to grow the business and or die trying, I suppose. So, yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you, Jonny. What I want to do now, we've talked about the position that we're in right now currently. We talked about the path that led us there. We have a number of students. We have over 60 students here now joining us on this call. And I know from teaching some of them, they're very eager. All of our students are eager to find out more about the type of work and the people behind the textbook stories that we read in classes. And so what I want to do is I want to start with Nick, if I can. Give us some insights. Talk to us about what you like about your work. Are there some things that you don't like? What do you find most challenging? Speak to our students about that.
Yeah, happy to. So from a social media perspective, at a large scale business like BMO, which is the 8th largest bank across North America, it really is a business within itself, and it kind of touches virtually every part of the bank. And because we are a center team, we support the enterprise as a whole, right? As opposed to a singular business unit. I love that about it. I'm not sure there's anything I'd say I dislike about the work, but I do think I'll make a lateral move here in the next year or two, simply just because I focused on social media for the last 4.5 years at BMO. And I'd kind of like to get back to something that's wider scoped, more all encompassing, perhaps all digital or all marketing as a whole. I guess from a challenging perspective, I would say it's less about anything social media specific and more about stakeholder management, because we work to support kind of all lines of businesses across, across global, really. I work regular with about 80 primary stakeholders, and I can tell you that they have various styles and objectives and things they're looking to get done. So balancing all of their needs and wants, and coming to the table as a proactive partner is probably the toughest part of my job.
I'm just going to tack on there that you've just absolutely nailed that on the head, Nick. I'd say that is probably when you're working with a number of stakeholders and, at a law firm, I've got, 90 plus bosses across Atlantic Canada. And when I'm working with them, it's key to adjust to, adjust where you can to their style, but also make sure that you're keeping things consistent in terms of brand voice, in terms of the messaging. You know, it's finding that balance of how do you tell a partner, oh, actually, we have to do it this way because, but you have to have, you've got to bring things to the table to say, this is why we do things the way we do. And managing those expectations and across the board is so key and an absolute challenge, but also really rewarding when you get it right. And when you have two different personality types that you can work with both, it's rewarding for sure.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Arielle, why don't we stick with you?
Sorry, me too. I've got there's 500 partners at BDO Canada. And so,
okay.
Yeah, I think stakeholder management, like if it's not taught right now, like there's probably a few things I would say. If you're not learning like sales and negotiation in your marketing program, that's something you need to focus on external, like brush up like Arielle has done around, specific skill sets. But stakeholder management is like with anything. If you're going to work in an agency, you have to manage the client. You have to manage the internal teams. If you're going to work in a business, you've got like, there's probably 100 unopened emails in Nick's inbox right now for people asking for different things that he's going to try to get to. So yeah, 100% stakeholder management is a big challenge.
225 unread.
Not counting, of course, right? That's just a rough estimate. Interesting. We talk about stakeholder analysis. That is something I'll put a plug to our panelists and students. That is something that we try to take a holistic approach in our program in a number of courses, from business ethics to applied marketing to corporate strategy. And so we're really happy that this is coming to fruition in our conversation here to prove to students that these aren't just boring theories and cases that we study in class. This is actually happening in practice. So this is awesome. Arielle, I'm going to bounce it back to you, and you can follow up. Talk to us about what you love about your job. You're 2 weeks into a new position, so you may not dislike some aspects of it yet, but if you do, please talk to us about that. And what do you find most challenging about your work overall?
So no, I don't dislike anything about my job yet. I'm actually overjoyed to be moving into this position. It's been a career move I've been having my eyes on for about a year solidly now. So I'm really happy that it was able to happen within the firm. But I still have responsibilities that tie into proposals and business development. So I can certainly speak to what I enjoy working about that. And it's largely the same as the challenge, stakeholder management, getting to work with teams across, in my case, Atlantic Canada for the most part, because McInnes Cooper has offices in all 4 Atlantic provinces. But even sometimes I get to engage with other law firms. There was a project I worked on really closely with a peer in British Columbia. And it's just been really great to get exposure to people across the business operations side as well as the legal operations side. I get to work closely with lawyers from all sorts of backgrounds, all different ages, and then our business operations teams. I'm working closely with technology team from sometimes human resources, and having the opportunity to liaise and learn from so many different people, I think that's been invaluable in shaping my perspectives and shaping my career. And I think that we learn the best when we're dealing with people that are in a different sphere from us, because they can bring a fresh perspective that we would not have even considered. I'm a marketing background, but someone from our HR team might bring something up to my attention that we should absolutely be highlighting that. Thank you for raising that to my attention. So the challenges and the joys are kind of 2 sides of the same coin for me, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Justin, give us the good, bad, and the ugly. You've had many positions and opportunities in this field, and even your current work now. So talk to us about things that you enjoyed and perhaps you didn't like, and some challenging work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's coming out is a very similar conversation. Certainly, these are things you can learn in theory in school, and it's so good that we're actually hitting on them, because there are truthfully some things you really can't really prepare for. But this really kind of seeds the ground for what you might expect. And I actually wrote down just before, coming on here today, I had written down managing expectations. So I think we're all kind of on the same page here. One of the most challenging things in any organization is just simply dealing with people. And how do we move a good idea to a great idea? And you have to always do it through people. So people skills are paramount here. And so that's probably one of the most challenging things. I'm like most other people here. I love my work. I love what I do. I can't say there's anything that I don't like. But one of the challenging things sometimes is trying to execute on a concept when you're dealing with so many different people. And so that requires just basic, skills of teamwork for sure. Learning to work through people and learning to listen and learning to try to find out what everybody's saying. And like I said, move a good idea to a great idea. And I have a couple things I just kind of wrote down here. I think Jonny kind of stimulated some of them. I really like what he said about movement. That here's a statement for us: if we learn to lead ourselves, then we can lead other people. But you can't grow a team if you're not growing yourself. So if you're not investing in education, if you're not investing in other knowledge, you won't be as valuable. And if you want to be valuable and grow in an organization, learn something. An old lady I used to actually live with back in university, she said, university is about learning to learn. It's not about giving you a job. It's about learning to learn. So if you learn to be a learner, you will add value to your organization. So that's the approach I've taken. I've worked for Scotiabank, obviously a very large bank, and I've worked on some national and international projects and had to, really receive instruction from a lot of executives and try to roll things out in a way that could, bring that messaging across the entire organization successfully. But in that process, I'd like to say it's so easy, to bring that about, but it's not. You really have to listen and be a team player. And I would say that if I could just kind of pass on, some of my experiences, manage expectations, try to work through people, and try to be a person that can be a learner or somebody that is can continually growing. People don't hire education; people hire experience. Employer is going to say, well, I'm going to hire you just because you have such and such, but they're going to hire people that have an experience or are showing a desire for that. So that's just some things that kind of impacted me. And I really appreciate what everybody else is saying. I think it holds true. And anyway, I think if we can exemplify these things, we'll become very valuable to organizations.
Wow. Jonny, I mean, Justin was touching on some of the things that you were talking about. I'll turn it to you for this question, but my goodness, students who are listening to this call, you are benefiting from a wealth of experience at different industry, different points in life. So Jonny, talk to us about that. Talk to us about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and your experience in the field.
Well, it's just before I get to that, I think it's important for me to state, like, I'm learning too. And, I don't have a whole lot of people I can talk to about my problems day to day at work. Like at the level that I'm at, there's other executives that I can lament to, but they don't want to hear me complain. And, so it's good to hear that other folks are having the same, we have the same problems, right? Or the same opportunities, I would say, to how we carry ourselves, how we operate, how we work. And Justin, I think I agree with everything you just said. And so I'll start with the stuff that I don't love to do, because there's a list of, like, I'm merging two teams together who come from very different cultures, who are at different stages in their career, who have different levels of just different personalities. That's hard, but I love that. I actually love the notion of change, of unfreezing people's thinking. We talk about change management models. I like the simple one: Kurt Lewin, unfreeze, implement, refreeze. Nick's smarter than I am, so he's got more, more models that he can draw upon. I love that work. I love working on people. I think if we are our best at home, we can be our best at work. And so a lot of the work that I do is not like performance management. It's not about like, well, this deal has been sitting in pipeline at 80% for 6 months. It's about, bringing in the right kind of people to coach and mentor and work with the team on their feelings. How are you feeling? I've been stuck in my basement for a year, whereas last year I did 100 flights and saw half the globe. Like we are all in very different worlds. You're all on a video call right now instead of being in a classroom like Nick and I had the benefit of doing, of getting to know one another, but so we all are carrying certain things with us that are challenges. So I'm working on people, make them as good as they can be at home for their partners, for their children, for their family, for their community. And I believe performance is the outcome of those inputs. If we're our best at home and we bring our best self to work, performance is the byproduct. And so it's a different way of managing, probably more in the transformational leadership model that I tend to focus on. There are things that I don't like. I don't like to have HR problems. I like harmony. I don't want to ripple in the force. I like people to get along. I don't want conflict. It's not a comfortable place for me. Tension's fine. Heated discussions are fine. Conflict, I really don't like it. It makes me sick to my stomach. And so, I've had to let people go. That stinks. And you said that Justin, you said that there are things that you can't prepare for. Well, like all the HR training in the world will not prepare you for the time, you have to terminate someone's employment. Like that's a tough thing.
John, if I could interject, and I like the fact that you're saying what you're saying. I think we all like our work, but here's the point is we all don't get to do our work. We have to work through stuff to get our work done. I think that's so valuable what you're saying.
That's a great point. Yeah. And so I guess the thing that I do to make the things that stink in my job tolerable are, again, go back to my own being. Like I care about people genuinely, and I care about the members of my team. I care about how they're doing, and they tell me, and so I'm pretty ruthless in planning, but very what's the word? I'm very compassionate in execution. And so that's I have to make this move, but I'm going to be very compassionate about how it's done. And so, yeah, there's good, bad, and ugly with every company. I love BDO. I think it's a great firm. I've gotten to meet a lot of really new people. One thing I'm excited about, I'm probably going to have to plan a retirement party. Like that's crazy. Like I've only seen one person retire from Lixar, and that was a wild event because we're a very young company. BDO are not. Like I've got people that are at the last kind of 5 years of their career, and I'm going to get to plan a retirement party. It's not something I ever envisioned. It was a nice little surprise. So I guess just being stretched, as Arielle said, new perspectives, meeting new people. That's a big chunk of the good.
Perfect segue, because at this point, like I'm sensing the conversation is talking about all of the wonderful things and some of the challenges, of course, that exist working in the field, but you've really painted a picture that I feel is realistic to our students. But now let's sort of take it from a different perspective. Let's think retrospectively. If you had to do your career over again, and for some of us that we're early career, but still, if you had to do things over again, what would you do differently and why? Let's start with Nick on this conversation here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would do anything over again, but I do often wonder about what my career would look like if I had, taken a different path with some of the job opportunities that have come my way. Facebook scaled pretty aggressively back in the day and picked off folks from similar positions to mine and offered me a job. That's the one thing that I kind of look back on and say, well, should I have gone to that CSM type of role and then maybe scaled into sales as opposed to the path that I took? So that's kind of the one thing that I look back on and wonder if I played right, especially as I see some of the folks that did take that path going on from Facebook to companies like Pinterest, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and leading, product globally or performance measurement globally or those types of things. So I'm pretty happy with where I landed so far. Still considering myself early in my career, early-ish. I'm probably 12 years in or so, and I think there's lots of learning to go.
That's perfect, Nick. Thank you for that. Let's bump it to Justin. anything that you would do differently and why?
Just get unmuted there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, probably I would. I mean, I kind of was heavily influenced, back in my early education, a lot of pressure to go a certain direction. And I didn't really have the knowledge to choose otherwise. So I actually wasted a lot of time. I went to St. FX and I was going to be a doctor. And I realized quickly, I don't want to do that. I can't envision myself doing that. We have doctors in our family, and I thought, well, that'll be an approach for me. So I had to find myself, and that's why I kind of jumped on what Arielle said. I had to find myself, and very similar to Jonny. Oftentimes we're pressured by whatever forces to follow a certain mold. But a large part of my experience has been finding out what I'm not good at, finding out what I really don't like, and then really following hard what I'm really good at. And so I think life and education and employment, I think it's a lot of learning to say no. So I had to learn how to say no to some things. And that was a big light bulb moment for me, to learn to say no to something that's good, to say yes to something that's greater. And so that's been a huge, huge thing. And Nick knows me well. I'm like a quote guy. I think in principles, and that's kind of how I put my mind together. But I found that work creates work. So if you can expose yourself to something, I also like to say exposure breeds passion. So if you can expose yourself to a field or something, that I think that you can open up worlds to you. And I kind of wish my path was earlier different on, and that would have really changed things. But at the end of the day, I landed where I've landed. And at the end of the day, I got there. I got where I needed to be. I work in nonprofit. I'm a mix of helping people and marketing nonprofit ideas and things like that. So I got there, but I wish I kind of could have got there quickly. I would have saved myself a lot of money. So.
That's great, Justin. Thank you for that. And we won't talk about that money because that's a sore spot for students. Quickly moving on, Jonny, I'll come to you and then we'll swing it to Arielle. Looking back, being retrospective, what would you do differently and why?
I believe in looking backward, but I am kind of like a very forward focused person. And so I focus in the moment and tomorrow. I try not to get too ahead of myself. I wouldn't change a single thing career-wise. I think that every misstep, every mistake, I'm here for a reason. And the path that I was set on, 25 years ago, like who knows? I often say, like, if I wasn't working that shit job, forgive my language, I wouldn't have met my wife. That was the biggest thing. That's the biggest, which means I wouldn't have had my children, which means like the stuff that really matters wouldn't have been in my life. And so I wouldn't change anything career-wise. I would tell you though, the things that I regret would be thinking in a particular moment, in a particular phase, that I'm stuck, that I don't have options in front of me. Thinking about, okay, I have to work that 70, 80-hour work week and miss out on things at home. Like, again, my kids are young. Bath time and bedtime is important, right? Like, like that's the real stuff. Your career is important, but your family is the most important thing in the world. And so I think I would probably not have worked, I want to say, like, I wouldn't have worked as hard, but I probably would have worked a little smarter, to say, okay, well, I can be home to do, dinner, bath, bed. And if I need to jump online at, 10 o'clock for an hour to get ahead of the day, like, I just would have been a little bit smarter in my 30s. And, now I'm in my 40s, and I recognize that work is always there. Like, I could work 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. It's not going anywhere. And so I just need to be really smart about applying a filter and looking at what's important. So, but whatever, like they say, you can't put an old head on young shoulders. Like, I needed to gain that experience. And I think everyone in this call, like, you're listening to us, and some of it will sink in, but some of it you just need to learn on your own and figure out. And But yeah, 80-hour work weeks are not sustainable. That's what I'd say. Don't do them. They'll make you sick physically.
I can just jump right in.
Thank you, Arielle.
Basically, Jonny has said what I was going to say is, I don't think I would actually change anything in my career, because you can't really predict what you're going to learn or who you're going to encounter. The jobs that you maybe don't enjoy as much might have, like Jonny, in Jonny's life, you might meet your future partner, or you can't predict what you're going to learn where. But absolutely, if I could tell freshly graduated Arielle anything, it would be, don't freak out about work. Don't let it consume you. And I've already kind of hit at one point, a couple of years ago, where I was just thinking about work all the time. I remember, kind of dreading opening my email in the morning, going, what's going to be in there for me. And when I hit that point, I just, really took the time to say, why am I at this place? And what I realized was, in order to enjoy my work more, I had to make space to enjoy my evenings, my weekends more. And when I started allowing myself to have that time, when a project required overtime, or when I did need to be a little bit more on the ball in the evenings or whatever, it wasn't that big of a deal, because I knew it wasn't going to be happening every day. It was, this is short term, but my work-life balance, it's such an overused term, but we really do need to find the balance for us. And sometimes, when something's balancing, sometimes the scales tip one way, and that's okay. Sometimes work might demand a little more attention, but sometimes family needs all of your attention, and that's okay too. So I think that if I could, impart that, I feel young to be, talking about that, but it's been such an early lesson for me in my career. And I would just really emphasize that you can work hard, absolutely, and that's important, but working smart, making time for the things that really matter to you is so key for the longevity of your career and your personal happiness.
Hey, Arielle, I have two little kids. They're back here somewhere, Roman and Maxton. And I just, something I started doing. I work hard. I work a lot of hours, but I started doing something. I'll stay back a little bit because I have some flexibility, and I'll try to eat breakfast with my kids. Do you know what I mean? That sounds so marketing panel, but it's life. And what good are we if we work all this stuff and we miss what's most important? Nobody's gonna go. Here I am. Nobody's gonna finish the end of their life and is everything going to be their job? It's going to be what you did with your job and your career. And I would just say with that, don't get destination disease. Don't be like thinking all about just the destination. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, sorry this is the gold, right? Like, this is the good stuff. As I said, like, working on people, like, that's what I do. I work on people that bring their best to the job. And part of that means mandating, like, you're taking 2 weeks off this summer. Like, you're going to be, I don't want to hear from you. I've got a guy, like, here's a real story. Like, I've got a guy right now on my team whose daughter was born premature, who's in the neonatal ICU. Like, that's real. That is real. This make-believe world of, like, of work it's not real. That's not real life. And so, being able to give him the space to focus on his family. Now, everything's going to be fine with the kid. She's kind of turning things around and has turned a corner, but, like, that's serious stuff that you get faced with in life. And I think, being able to say, focus on the stuff that's most important so that you can come back to work and feel energized to be able to put in those sprints, Arielle, as you mentioned, like, okay, I got to work late or work a weekend. It happens. But if it becomes the day in, day out, you're going to burn out. And burnout's, like, it's a real thing. I don't know if anyone on this call's physically had it. I have. Like, I flamed out of a job and completely burnt out, physically sick. Like, took me a year to regain my health. And so, those are lessons that you just have to be aware of what it looks like and what it feels like before it happens, right? So.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jonny. And all of our panelists, that was a cool, interesting direction that we sometimes don't get in our panel, but I'm so excited about this. So thank you. I'm going to mesh together the last couple of questions just so that we can save time. We have about 20 or so minutes. I want to save some time for some Q&A from the virtual audience here. So if you have a question, you're here, you're joining us, please feel free to use the chat. It will be moderated by our special projects coordinator, Kayla. But I'm going to sort of wrap our conversation up. I'm going to swing it over to Justin first, and then we'll work our way through it. But we've been giving advice to students all through the panel here. Can you give any parting advice to students who are interested in marketing, students who, let's even broaden that, interested in business or communications? What type of skills, training should they be thinking about in their education, and what types of positions should they be considering once they graduate? So just sort of this last word of advice. Justin, please.
Yeah, so I made that statement earlier. People don't hire education, because if you look at a couple of resumes, and one guy has this, or girl has this really great, resume of education, and then you have this person maybe that they don't have all the education, so they have this little clause in the online job posting. They'll consider other, I guess, combination of skill and life experience, whatever. That's there for a reason. It's because people have an education doesn't mean that you can do the job. We have heard so many stories of people that have done amazing things with very little education. Now, education comes in form of university, because I don't discredit that, but also comes in the form of life experience. So what I would say to somebody that's pursuing this is, work creates work. So get busy working. Don't get destination disease, like, I gotta get this, and this, and you're forgetting the big picture. People hire people. They're going to hire somebody that fits the organization, somebody that, can connect with the organization. And what I'm hearing now is even employers are taking people out to eat to see how that person reacts in just a human level, because they recognize it's not just about the business, it's about the relationships in the business. And so I just believe, and even on that burnout topic, you know what I mean? I believe that people that are well balanced and that are well, leveled, I believe they add more to the organization. So if we can learn to do stuff in our life to make ourselves valuable, so whether it be extracurricular activities, serving in your community somewhere, finding things that just make you a valuable person. So I would say that's huge. And I like what Jonny said about, sometimes we discredit ourselves. No doubt there's people in this panel or people listening to this panel that feel like, oh, I would never qualify for that job. So you discredit yourself. You got to act like what you want to be, not what you are. So you can't just exclude yourself. You got to start acting the part. In other words, if you want an executive job, you got to start acting the part. You got to start thinking, what education or what experiences do I need? And then you start building that out and realize that just because you're where you are right now, it doesn't mean you can't occupy that future position. Somebody wrote the book, The Law of Attraction, and it's true. You attract what you are. So if you start to, possess those skills and possess those dreams, then in reality, people will start to give those opportunities to you. I don't think opportunities come by accident. I really think that it's a combination of all these things that we're doing in our life. So I would say that just adding daily to our skills, our experiences, that adds great value to making you a marketable candidate.
This is awesome. Anybody else, panel? I don't want to be structured after the first. Justin, perfect.
Consider
Jonny,
a career in sales. I think that sales is I don't know if I could get a show of hands. How many of you have thought about getting into the sales profession? It is a profession. In the world that I'm in, I cannot find people to pay them exorbitant six-figure salaries to give them literally, you can make a ton of money. And autonomy, those things path. It does. other than that, I don't think I can add to what Justin's already said. I mean, I think you've nailed it. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. It's probably the advice, be in the moment and enjoy the ride. You've got a long career ahead of you, and, consider selling, consider sales. It's a good, it's a good job.
So Jonny, just to follow up. Oh, please, Justin, please.
I will say that it is the funnest of all jobs, in my personal opinion. So anyway, I had to say that.
No, absolutely. And I know Justin's career has certainly, that has been part of his work history, and it's benefited him in his current role. But Jonny, let me, that connection that you have with Justin, let me talk to you about that. What is it about sales that frightens people, and what can students do to position themselves to take that first job in sales, to have that, like you say, unlimited earning potential theoretically, and free time and autonomy? What is it that we have to overcome to embrace sales?
Fear. Fear. You've got to be able to put yourself out there. So, Arielle mentioned she had to do cold calling and hated it. Well, no one likes cold calling. It's a fact. Nobody likes it. But depending on the type of selling that you get into, like, so in my position, no one calls cold calls. Like, these are executives that are selling to executives. But they have to be able to put themselves out there. And some of them started in, a more traditional kind of boiler room style cold calling, dial for dollars. I think that's a huge misconception, in that there is no such thing as cold calling with social media. Like, every call is a warm call with LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, Facebook. Like, people's their lives are out there. I know that Justin is a pastor in a church. Like, that to me is interesting. So if I'm going to sell to Justin, I'm going to speak in his language. I know that because Nick is also, is also involved there. But so I think that people have a misconception about sales, but the fear is that I'm going to have to just pick up the phone and, dial for every dollar. And it's not the case. But I look at people who've done that, and I'm like, wow, you're going to fit in perfectly in this space. So, get outside of your comfort zone, and job in sales is good. It's a good gig. You should learn about selling. It is a science, not an art. It's not influencing. It's about helping people make a good decision. There's a ton of good books out there to read. Learn about selling, learn about negotiating. There's a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss that I think everyone should read, about, negotiation and basically, how to effectively negotiate. My bookshelf here is stacked full of all kinds of different sales books. I don't have a favorite, but find someone on YouTube that speaks to you in a language that you like, and they probably have a book. Go buy that book, and then read the next one and the next one and the next one. Learn about selling and negotiation.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I'll pivot onto that. My dad has a very successful career in sales. It's not all cold calling, and I definitely considered that when I was graduating, for sure. If I had to give some advice, I would say, start creating now. If you're interested in being in a creative career, start creating now. If you enjoy the writing aspects, or you think that you might start a blog, start something, get going, because they're not going to just say, oh, you have a marketing degree, fantastic. They're actually going to want samples of your writing, and that's just a part of the workplace today. You can't just say, yeah, I'm a good writer. You have to prove it. And just because you're a good writer doesn't mean that you align with their style. So if somebody doesn't like your writing samples, also just don't take that too personally. In the terms of content creation, there's also a really great person that I would recommend you follow if you're into content creation and distribution. It's Ross Simmons here in Halifax. He owns a company, and he's spoken at the Mount in the past. So I would absolutely recommend that you guys check out Ross Simmons. Follow him on LinkedIn. He's got to get on his distribution list, whatever. Learn from him, because he's all about creating and getting yourself out there. He also posts a lot of really motivational stuff, just in terms of have confidence in yourselves, and and that would be the other piece for me is don't be afraid. If you're interested in a job, reach out to someone on LinkedIn that works at that company. Have the confidence to just send them a note. I've had someone do that to me as we're getting ready to hire my replacement for the proposal sphere. Just, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the job? And I was more than happy to do it. In fact, it really impressed our HR people. So have the courage to go out and say, yeah, I'm going to go for this, and I can do this. And if you can't, you know what, you'll learn a lot on the way, and then eventually you'll be able to. So just don't be afraid.
Great comments. Wow, those are great comments. So good.
Thank you. Wow. And so you're telling me, Arielle, that LinkedIn and being connected with people is actually a part of the piece of the puzzle of this game called work? Is that what you're telling me? I have to convince my students. Okay, I have to convince my students that sometimes it's the network that you have, and the best network out there right now in terms of a social platform for the working world is LinkedIn. So thank you for that plug. I've been trying to share that with my students all year. Thank you.
There's a meme out there that says, it gives the kind of fake definitions of each social media channel. And it said, LinkedIn, it was connect with other professionals for no reason. And that's absolutely not the case. I've had people contact me with career opportunities. I've, connected with other people. There's a real community there. It might take a while to build it up and to get to the place where, you can see the fruits of that, but do not dismiss LinkedIn right now. In a virtual world, your networking is looking a lot different, and LinkedIn is a great, easy place to start.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect. Thank you. Nick, last but not least, share with us some parting words of wisdom. What should students be thinking about? Some qualities, traits? What would you recommend as a first job? What's the parting words of wisdom departing into the marketing field after graduating?
First up, I got my job at BMO because a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn with a job opportunity. Found me, reached out to me. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I would say that I've been approached by at least 20 other recruiters for other opportunities just in the last year. So when it comes to LinkedIn, I would hope that's in 100% table stakes. And if you're not on it with a full profile and active, you should be, because it has real impact and has real financial impact for your career. It also, in a lot of cases, when you have a job, gives you negotiation leverage when those recruiters reach out to you. So that's thing one. Thing two, let me bring it back just a little bit from a marketing perspective. For those of you studying business, for those of you studying marketing right now, there has historically been what some marketers, not sales guys or sales professionals, but some marketers have said is a bit of an imbalance between compensation structures between marketing and sales. Sales, it's very easy to draw a direct line from, I brought in X amount of revenue to the firm, and therefore you should pay me a percentage of that. That's been a story that's been told for years and years and years. It's much easier to make. I think what's happening in marketing right now is a fundamental shift. And I think that's why you're seeing marketing salaries climb so rapidly. The reason behind that is marketing attribution technology. So I can tell you, when I put out advertising, from lift studies, from incrementality, what I've actually driven from a new business perspective. So as things get more and more digitized, the place you want to be if you're interested in marketing is within digital marketing, within measurement and incrementality and all that kind of stuff. You need to learn it, you need to study it, and you need to really impact the bottom line and understand how you impact the bottom line to drive revenue. And those six-figure salaries, as Jonny was talking about, sometimes multiple six-figure salaries as you get into the director level and above and that kind of stuff, where you get stock, you get bonuses and all that kind of stuff, extra performance awards. That's where you're going to make it. You're not going to make it based on the things that don't have attribution technology behind it. And hopefully content marketing is one of those things where I think they're trying to still kind of crack, but they'll get there as well. So for those of you that are looking at that field, don't think you're going to have such a pay discrepancy with sales over time. You still probably will. I don't know that it's going to make up, but so there's that. And then I guess the last thing that I'll say is, so many of us have touched on the never stop learning. I did 2 degrees at the Mount, and I've done 4 certificates since. I'm doing another one right now. So there's that. You have to stay ahead of the curve, and you have to know what you don't know, and you have to try to fill that gap if it's going to help to round out your performance. And the very last thing that I will offer everyone is, if you're anything like my experience, don't be afraid to leave Nova Scotia if you don't land your dream job. If you can, chase your dreams and your dream job. with your additional work experience that you're going to get by chasing those dreams in your dream job out of province, you can always keep an eye on jobs coming up in Nova Scotia. Apply for those amazing roles when they do come up periodically, land that great job to come back to, and having that leverage and financial security kind of often opens up those better negotiating skills, right? Those better negotiation opportunities, which helps you land better outcomes in terms of your employment when you do come back, whether that be salary, vacation, or really any other aspect of the employment relationship, right? So don't be afraid. Get out of Nova Scotia. It's probably not going to change much by the time you get back there. That's the secret they don't tell you.
Excellent.
Thank you for that. Wow. We have a few moments here for any questions. This is a virtual format, students, so you do not have to turn on your webcam at all. You can certainly use the chat. It is open. Anything at all, anything that you wanted to follow up on, anything that you heard that you would like to perhaps unpack, but now is your opportunity. We have 4 all-stars here on the panel talking about marketing and communications. So we'll just take a few moments here to see if you have any questions. We'll cue the Jeopardy music as I tell my students.
While we're waiting, Nick, I'm just going to tack on one other
Please.
thing. It should be obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. Wherever you are, just do work really hard. Put your heart into your work, and demonstrate that you have the legs to get things done. Don't wear yourself out, absolutely not. But even if you're in a job that you think is just temporary, you do not know where you're going to end up. My first co-op manager ended up being my manager for almost 5 years here at the firm, and having worked diligently at a 3-month co-op term, paid dividends 3 years later when she was my manager again. And so don't ever neglect the position you're in now. Just don't underestimate the power of good work.
That's gold. That's gold.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I don't think there are any questions. That's how wonderful a job you panelists have done for us. So thank you. I want to, we do. We have a professor here, Danny Wadden, excuse me. Please, Danny, you may ask your question.
He may need to be
Hello,
unmuted.
okay, I just got unmuted.
There you go.
I think the chat was disabled. I was trying to put a question in. So I'll just read what my question is, because I think most of the students that are in here are in my class. So let me pull it up. So great discussion, everyone. But one thing that I do want to ask is that many people think of marketing as more of a qualitative field rather than a quantitative field. So how important are financial skills in your positions as marketers?
That's all I do. Like, I manage a budget essentially. And so I manage a budget for people, for vendors, for advertising, for marketing. It's critical. And when I was purely in marketing, I wasn't creative at all. Like, I was an account person, creating strategy for clients. And so it was all about budget management and finance. So that's critical, Danny.
And I also too, I work for a nonprofit organization to help, post-secondary, and literally manage the entire marketing budget. So it was pretty paramount to understand how that works.
And if it's not finance in terms of dollars, understanding the metrics and the numbers behind your marketing and what impact it's having is absolutely huge. I remember doing my marketing strategy course at the Mount, and Heidi Vigan was my teacher at the time, and she just said, if you're not comfortable with numbers in marketing, get ready, baby, because it's going to hit you in the workplace. And that's absolutely been the case. I haven't worked, say, with social media. I'll leave Nick to speak to that piece. But, in my job as a proposal coordinator, I worked on pricing out legal services with our finance team and the lawyers. Never thought I'd be doing that when I was in a marketing degree. So absolutely get comfortable with numbers in one way or another, because they're coming.
Yeah, I guess what you're hearing from the panelists is if you're looking to make it at the top in marketing, if you're looking to scale, if you're looking to climb the ladder, or you're looking to open your own creative agency, as so many in Halifax seem to be doing these days, being able to demonstrate and unpack the financial impact of your decisions, whether they be the creative campaign you've driven, the new initiative you introduced to cut costs. So anything that's bottom line terms, like cost savings, incremental profitability driven through those initiatives, that's what's going to help you rise up the chain, right? You have to be able to prove the monetary impact through either cost savings or incremental profit if you're going to go up the chain, because just saying, hey, look at my cool flashy ad is never going to get you there.
We have time for one more question really quickly. I wanted to get this hand. Jarima, my apologies. The floor is yours. You can ask your question.
Hi everyone, how's everyone? My name is Garima. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I was trying to put in a question in chat, but it is disabled for everyone. So I don't think anyone can put in a question in there. So my question is, like, I am a tourism student and I'm recently trying to get into marketing because I really loved my marketing classes. I just had 2 of them, and but unfortunate for me, like I don't have any experience in this, like not too much, and I even don't have relative education. Nobody is even hiring me for like starting jobs like coordinator, because even for coordinator it's expected that you should have like 2 to 3 years of experience. So I'm in kind of a position where I don't know what I should do. Like, if you guys can provide me some insight, I'm even ready to volunteer. So I'm trying to reach out to marketing firms like, hey, I'm ready to volunteer in any position. I just want some experience under my band so that, you know, I can know if this thing is meant for me, and because I'm interested in that, but I'm not getting too positive responses. And I hope you guys could provide me an insight or something.
Yeah,
Hey, Nick. Go ahead,
I'll
Nick.
take a crack. I'll take a crack at that one. So your experience, like I had a purpose-built education and I still couldn't get a job coming out of university with my marketing degree and with a master's in public relations. So don't feel you're alone in that. What I had to do was move. And unfortunate to say, there's a lot of opportunity in larger cities, and particularly if you're looking at marketing, Toronto is where probably 80% of corporate head offices are. And you can look at organizations like Career Edge and other internship-based organizations that are either paid or unpaid. Most are paid these days because unpaid is kind of controversial and it's becoming more so. That is probably the best way to break in if you don't have a personal connection. And I would say that, you know, the pay for that kind of stuff is, it might be 30 grand a year without benefits, and you're living in a big city. So there will be some sacrifice there. But even getting a year at a corporation like Bell, BMO, Scotiabank, CGI, I mean, you name it, it writes your ticket, right? Like the one thing people don't really tell you is the importance of brand recognition as you're going across scale. And particularly if you're looking to work for other blue chip firms where, you know, I've got a job description for a coordinator role in market right now, reporting into one of my managers, and there's 480 applications. Well, automatically, right, I'm looking at folks that have been there and done it, and name brands that I've known, and I'm not looking at those smaller firms. I'm not looking at those other experiences where you haven't been in that sort of matrix organization, managing stakeholders and doing the things that you would need to learn how to do in a corporation. Because make no mistake about it, the larger organization you work in, that's almost like a degree in itself, trying to navigate a complex corporate structure, right? So get in any way you can and try to get in, even if it costs you money, because it's going to pay you money down the line.
That's good.
I would add on that if there's any opportunity for you to be involved in a not-for-profit and to do that in a volunteer capacity there, I mean, just start getting your legs under you in terms of experience. You know, it's a tough position to be in, but you know, keep going at it and just practice what you're interested in on your own. Create your own channels for something you're interested in. I don't, you know, if you're into food or photography, just start somewhere, showcase your capabilities, demonstrate your growth that way, and just go from there.
And I would add too, you know, obviously we're talking about marketing. the first thing you have to market is yourself. So you have to be able to, as was mentioned by Arielle, create something and then try to market it, position it so that someone would want it, whether it be through your resume, get a website, do something to showcase, what you have. And then, do anything you can, as Nick said, do anything you can to get in the door, take a hit, just to get noticed. Maybe it's a company that you want to work for. Go to their website and start to find out what their needs are and see if you can meet any of those needs. Do it. They call an informational interview. Say, hey, such and such organization, I want to just come in. I have interest in your organization. Could I interview somebody? And so you interview them. You're not asking for a job, but you're interviewing them. You're finding out about them. And then at the end of the informational interview, you pass them something and you say, hey, this is my portfolio. This is my resume. If there's ever an opportunity, I just want you to know I'm interested. That is an excellent way to get your foot in the door, as well as volunteering as well.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I hate to cut this short, but we are now over time, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank each of our panelists, Arielle, Nick, Justin, Jonny. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your Tuesday to be with us. And I want to say to our students and our audience here that on behalf of the Department of Business and Tourism, thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement. And thank you to our faculty. This recording will be available on the department's YouTube channel in the near future for future consumption. Thank you very much. And until our next panel, we want to wish everybody a happy, healthy Tuesday. Enjoy yourself and take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much.